This is Resolute and the Resolute Podcast, where we are discipling and developing men to live with conviction. I am Vince Miller, your host, and today we are discussing another one of the 9 commitments of Jesus Christ for men. This one is entitled Loving Others. Men, welcome back to the program. If this is your first time tuning in, then thank you for joining us. The Resolute Podcast is produced multiple times every week. We have Resolute study guides that go along with this podcast for your men's group, found on the website for members at beresolute.org. Come back often. Feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or in iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. All the links are on the homepage of our website. So let's dive in. So today, guys, we are continuing with the 8th of our 9 commitments. This one is entitled Loving Others. You know, love is perhaps one of the greatest commitments of Jesus that we could ever discuss. Love is a word with so many rich qualities in the Bible that often reaches to the very limits of our ability to understand, and therefore it makes it very difficult to describe. Let me give you an example of this. See, love has this timeless feature. So if you turn over to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which is known as the love chapter of the Bible, we see a very precise statement from the Apostle Paul, the author, and here's what it says at the end of the chapter. And now these 3 remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Perhaps a verse that you have heard many times in your life. And what the Apostle Paul means by this is that faith and hope, while critical for the believer, only have temporal qualities. Love, on the other hand, has an eternal quality. So here's another way to say it, maybe an easier way to understand it. When we get to heaven, there is no need for faith because faith becomes sight. There's also no need for hope because hope becomes reality. But love, it transcends time. There is nothing like love because it exists in time and space and beyond time and space. This gives love a unique quality and therefore makes love a very complex concept for us to humanly understand. Because as one of your favorite and my favorite groups of all time, Journey said, it's more than a feeling, right? I think that Paul in Corinthians says the same thing. Love is more than a feeling. It has transcendent qualities that go beyond even our ability to understand. But here's one more thought for you to consider. In the Bible, there are only a couple of things that it says that God is. One of these things is God is light. And the other thing we are told that God is love, actually. What is unique about both descriptions of God is that they are both intangible objects, and still to this day, both are extremely hard to understand. Did you know that even with the technology in our present time, we still do not fully understand light, which is one of the first things that God ever created? And from the looks of it, from the looks of our love life, we clearly don't fully understand the full reaches and qualities of love itself. So today I want to look at love and how to love others because, guys, there's nothing like genuine love. And while it may be hard to define and describe what love is, there is a degree to which we feel and experience love in our life. And perhaps the one love that we can all sniff out is manufactured love that's motivated by a selfish heart. However, I will say there have been a few very sparse moments in my life when I have felt and experienced the beauty of love from pure motivation. For example, the first moments of my encounters with the woman that I now call my wife, I experienced incredible love, and not just infatuation, but there was love there. For example, the moments that followed the birth of each of my 3 children. And of course, the moment that I discovered that Jesus Christ unconditionally loved me as a sinner. Wow, That perhaps was the greatest moment of my realization of true, unconditional, outright gracious, forgiving, merciful, endless love. And in these moments, love is so incredible, right? Because we experience in that moment an ever-expanding moment of complete and total love. And guys, this is hard to describe. But you know what the real struggle is for us as men? It's living out biblical love and becoming a conduit of God's love to the world. That's our real struggle. Our real struggle is living in the divine love that God gives to us and sharing it with the world. I want to read a couple of verses to you today. Both were shared by Jesus in very special moments. The first is from John chapter 13, verses 34 through 35. Just listen in. If you want to follow along, you can. Pull open your Bible, John 13, verses 34 through 35. It reads, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And then a little further on, just a little forward in John 15, verses 9 through 13, so turn your Bible a little forward. It reads, John 15, 9 through 13, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide, remember that concept? Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than someone laid down his life for his friends. Powerful words, right? Powerful words. Now, in both of these texts, we are in what is called the upper room discourse. This is the address from Jesus that is given in the final night of Jesus' life, shortly after Judas, who's the betrayer, has left the supper table. We see that Christ is giving us a command, which he dubs as this new commandment. And what Jesus is doing here is comparing his divine and perfect love to that of a legalistic human view of love. Now, while love in the Hebrew mindset up to this point fully embraced and was fully deployed in the law, love was often understood and acted on partially and only legalistically as a law. Jesus here is making a distinction, one they probably will not fully understand in this moment, but they would certainly understand after the events of his death on the cross and his resurrection on that third day. Now, Jesus punctuates this with this phrase, new commandment, with a few important notes. First, that his love has a quality and a nature of reciprocity. It flows from Jesus and then to us. This is the divine feature of his love. This is what makes it new or unique. It comes straight from the source, God himself, for God is love. Secondly, Jesus infers that he has intentionally modeled this love for them so that we can not only understand it, but so that we can model it for others. And in doing this, we live in divine love and share divine love. Third, we see that love is the ultimate proof of our discipleship, not our legalism, not our obedience, or of our knowledge, but simply of our love. That's it. Therefore, when we live in Jesus' divine love, we prove that we have been discipled by Jesus and therefore become like this conduit of love. And when we become the conduit of love, others are a recipient directly of God's love. Guys, this single statement from Jesus gives us tons of information about the qualities of God's love and how it works through us. We are a conduit of a divine, eternal resource that we should never withhold or, let's say, dam up in our life from other people. Now, the next text that we read, the second one, is a bit of a piggyback on the text we discussed in a previous lesson on producing growth. Yet it has a little bit of a spin on the topic of love. Clearly, the activity that Jesus is calling to is this abiding activity, like remaining in and abiding in the vine, because Jesus is the vine. He is where nutrients flow from. But here Jesus adds that this activity, abiding, is central to intimately knowing God's love, that the nutrient that flows through the vine is love. One addition that we see here in this text from the other one is that God initiates the love. He alone is the source of Jesus's love. Jesus then freely passes on the love that he has received, and our obedient abiding is the bridge or conduit to this divine love. This is just enunciates the point, right? He also adds in the reason to abide in this love, which is for experiencing the fullness of joy. And we see that there is a single act that is the greatest demonstration of love, and this is self-sacrifice for God's mission. Not just self-sacrifice, not just laying down your life, but laying down your life for God's mission, right? For his mission and friends. This willingness to lay our life down for our friends to accomplish God's purposes. And of course, we know Jesus would, in just hours of this moment, show us what he was teaching us here. This is what I love about Jesus. Jesus himself would live out the prophetic and divine love that he was teaching the 11 in this moment, and even dies. Guys, get this. Even dies for the one who betrayed him, Judas. Guys, this is real love. Loving those who hate you by willing to sacrifice yourself for their life and the mission of God. Wow. This is crazy kind of love, right? This is crazy love. And guys, we really need to live in this kind of love. You know what Jesus wants us to do? He wants us to do the same. Jesus wants us to love others completely and totally, regardless of how we think about them. But because we're living life on mission, we become a conduit of self-sacrificing, mission-focused love. Well, gentlemen, this week, I want to challenge you to do just one thing for me. I want you to love people in your life unconditionally. Specifically, I want you to focus that love on someone that you know you don't like or that they don't like you. Do it in a self-sacrificing way and come to discover the beauty, the full beauty of incredible love. Well, gentlemen, that's the show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our time today, we hope that you will pass this podcast along to other men that you know, other men that maybe need to love others better. Just head to our website, beresolute.org, for the Resolute app, or simply share this feed with them. Guys, I also want to encourage you to find a couple of other men to join in with you. Listening on your own is great, but doing this with other men is way better because you can challenge each other, you can hold each other accountable, you can print out the handouts that go with these studies, you can build community, and most of all, you can build real love. You can learn to love better. So guys, get off the bench and get into the love game. And please join us next time for another edition of the Resolute Podcast.